Coach, hey, thanks for joining me today on this SimpleCoach Coach interview. Do appreciate it. It's always wonderful seeing you and catching up. Love talking to you, so looking forward to today. Thank you.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me on. Number 3 for me on the SimpleCoach show.
Yeah, I know. You're not, you know, I dispense with all the niceties at the beginning because you're not a rookie. And so, yeah, I just get you straight to the hot seat, the lights on, you know, smoking cigarettes to burn on your hand, you know, all that stuff. Hey, I'm curious, genuinely curious. I have very strong opinions, but tell me about your season. How do you think it went? Tell me how your season went from your perspective.
I think it was great. I mean, anytime you get to that level in the NCAA tournament, we won the conference. I mean, we have to be really grateful for what we have and what we accomplished. So I would say 95 of it is positive. You know, there's still the 5% of us internally that we want to go to another level and want to try and figure that out and what those next steps are for us. But I mean, for the most part, we're pretty grateful for what we have. I think the season was really smooth just from like a player management standpoint. You know, no off-field issues, 0 issues with guys and teammates. It was probably one of our, knock on wood, I mean, it was probably our smoothest season just from a player management standpoint. We had incredible internal leadership within the guys, so obviously that helps a ton. So yeah, from where I sit, I mean, we had a good level of success, very grateful for it. We had an amazing like kind of team culture this past year. I pride ourselves on that every year, but this year was, you know, above and beyond.
Yeah.
So yeah, all profit for us.
I will say, hearing that makes me feel like my thoughts about your team go hand in hand, right? Because I had picked you guys. Maybe this was a kiss of death. Should keep my mouth shut. But I thought if there was a team, if I was looking at teams that could win a national championship, I had said that you guys could. I thought you were that good.
Thanks.
And I do think it was like this trajectory of having watched you over the last 3. Like, I just thought this was I don't want to say culmination because there's only way down from that, but like, man, you guys had grown so much in terms of how you play soccer that I thought it was evident this year. And maybe that was all this stuff coming together.
Thanks. Yeah, and I thought we were there. I mean, we're definitely in the mix, and if some things go your way in a game, then I think we could have. I wouldn't pick us as a favorite. I mean, I think I wouldn't have bet my life savings on us. You know, like there's really good teams around the country.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a hard thing to do. But I think coming out of COVID, 2021, we were really old, senior laden, 5th-year guys. Played a really good brand. I thought we had a really good season that year. 2022, we were back kind of young again. As like a reset type of year. And all of those young guys kind of stepped up and we had a good level of success. And then, I mean, for the most part, this past fall was just an extension of 2022.
Yeah.
I mean, very similar personnel on the field. And then this next year, who knows? You know, I mean, we lose some marquee pieces from that, but we also keep some marquee pieces from that. Right now we're just working on the culture to like keep that consistent and onboard some new guys into that, you know, kind of functional roster of 16 to 18 that play kind of day in and day out. So time will tell.
Yeah. What? Did you get a sense going into the season like you thought this could be a year? And by the way, let me go back. I picked you guys, not picked, but I said, here's a team that could. And anytime I say that, it means like you have to play, obviously, very well. And then I also think there are things along the way that you need to go your way, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to be in the right bracket. Not to say that it's got to be easy, but you almost want to delay the pain before you start playing really, really good teams and,
Yep.
that sort of thing. So that's why I thought you guys could do it. Like if it was the draw was favorable, I think if you don't go to Amherst, I think it might be a different story, right? Like I thought that was a really tough draw, but
Yeah. I mean, that weekend in of itself was going to be
yeah,
a gauntlet to get through, right? Like both of those
yeah,
games. We didn't get through number one, but
yeah,
I mean, even if you get through number one, then you got to get through number two that weekend. And
correct.
that's a tough weekend.
Yeah, yeah, that was really tough. That's what I mean by saying that I thought you guys could. I thought, like I said, I thought you were one of the two public schools that I thought could do it. The other being Montclair, just because of the quality you have all over the field. What was your sense going into the season? Like, how are you feeling? I mean, knowing sort of where you're coming from, and you got these pieces, and I mean, were you feeling really good, or were there open questions for you and the coaching staff?
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. I'm definitely not like wildly optimistic. Kind of like I don't have this blind faith that we're going to be great every year. I'm a little bit more of, I would say, just like a realist.
Mm-hmm.
And the game itself has ups and downs. Like that's the game. You can do everything right and lose, and you can do everything wrong and win. And so I I don't ever get a sense going into a season that like, hey, we're going to win a ton of games and we're going to be great. Um, I knew we had the potential to, but that means you still got to go out and do it. And I think anytime you have the potential to do it and you have those players that every team that you play against is circling you on the schedule. So, you take a team that's, maybe on paper not the same as you are, but they're really up for it and you're a little bit
Mm-hmm.
down for it. And it's a whole different
Yeah.
game, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't go into seasons with blind faith thinking that we're going to be great. I'm a little bit more skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
And I relay that to our guys for sure of just, you have to do all the right things. You got to have the right habits. Like eventually you have to just go earn every 90 minutes, like
Yeah.
you can't just think that you're going to be good. But I knew we had pieces. I knew we had great leadership. That's kind of easy to spot going into it. The effort that our older guys took over the summer just on their own time and the things
Yeah.
that they did together were great. Um, our staff was kind of back for year two, all of us. So there wasn't a learning curve for new staff. Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of the things that, you would pick if you got to pick and choose, the start of your
Mm-hmm.
season. We had a lot of those. So good leadership, great staff,
Yeah.
familiar players. So,
Uh, One of the hallmarks that we talk when we talk, or I've talked in the past, mentioning that you're not a rookie. You do probably more than most coaches talk about that cultural element and the team culture, and maybe could you just talk a little bit about that, the importance of it at Cortland, and
yeah.
why it's
Um,
such a big deal for you, right? Like if that
it's my
makes sense.
marquee thing. I mean, I think
Yeah.
all things considered, it helps you win games that are pretty equal. Um, I think it really helps when you don't win games.
Mm-hmm.
When things don't go your way. It's kind of like that. What do you fall back on? Um, and I'm like probably very proud over the last, I don't know, 6, 7 years that if we lose a game that we shouldn't, on paper, and that's like a weird thing to say, but if you lose a game that internally you feel like, you didn't need to lose, you kind of beat yourself on the day. We've never done that twice in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, like that's a good telltale sign of like our culture helps us rebound after adversity.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Player experience, I mean, like kids have to sign up for something, like everybody says, oh, going to college, like there's a lot more to it than just the piece of paper that you get, right? And college soccer is no different. Like everybody plays soccer, everybody's got balls and new uniforms and, facilities and you name it, but like what else, right? Like there has to be
Mm-hmm.
something else that is drawing people to want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I think culture is definitely that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, recruiting, I think it helps us. Like that feel that players get when they're on campus as a recruit,
Yeah.
I think helps.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're recruiting against, schools that on paper are better academically than us.
Yeah.
So I think, one of the ways that we try and sell ourselves is that at the end of your 4 years, the people that you're around and the culture that you're going to be in is going to help you for the next 40 years as much as a different piece of paper, right? And so that's kind of what we hang our hats on, and that's something that we got to build and stay true to our word every day.
What that's interesting. I love that sort of thing, right? Like it's funny. I always tell people like I'm more when I talk to coaches like you and others, right? Like I almost chime in more on the soccer is the soccer on the field, right? But what is why would I want to go to Cortland, right? Like that's the sort of question. Like what would it be that would attract me, right? And it's the buildings are all buildings, right? And it's like you said, I guess everything's equal in that regard. And how do you make it special, and how do you make kids feel special? And I think that does come down a lot to the culture and sort of have what they're coming into and what they're signing up for. What during the season did you have a point in knowing sort of your personality? But was there a point in the season where you thought to yourself like, "Hey, we got something going pretty special here, pretty good, and we just got to keep, every day, like you said, earning it." But was there a point where you're just kind of like, we might be a little bit better than what you normally view it as?
Yeah. We dealt with some injuries of some top kids this year, top players. So the kid, Jack Coleman, he actually, in one of our games, kind of took a knock, and it seemed pretty benign. And then he had some like swelling on his lower spine. They gave him like a week.
Gosh.
He came back into training, and some guy like kind of patted him on the back, like in training. And he looked great in training. He looked 100%, but kind of patted him on the back, like, "Hey, good job. Like, you look good again." And an hour later, he had to be airlifted from our field.
Oh my gosh.
He had like when I tell you, it was like the size of a soccer ball swelling coming off of his spine. So it was really crazy. Like that was just like a fluke thing. Nobody had ever seen it. None of our athletic trainers have ever seen it.
And he got the clean bill of health up until that point?
Yeah.
Like to come back to train? Holy smokes.
So anyways, and then we went into that next game. And long story short, I mean, we were missing a couple of our top attacking guys, and we actually were playing against New Paltz in conference. And like, that was a big game, like they were number 3 in the region at that time.
Yeah. They're very good.
They were really good. Like we were all kind of duking it out at the top of the conference. And we played a different style. The guys bought in, they understood it. We sat a little bit lower. We weren't like desperate to have all of the ball all game. We were a little bit comfortable with that. We wanted to counterattack a little bit more. So long story short, I mean, the guys played their role really, really well, even though we were missing some of the marquee guys that we had leaned on all year. And so for me, like that was a big point to kind of prove to us that it didn't matter who we put out on the field. We had ways that we could figure games out, even really good games. So that was a big one for us. And even just mentally, like Jack Coleman's younger brother was on the team. He was a freshman this year. So like, what their family's going through and like what our players are going through, like kind of seeing a teammate go through that, to mentally bounce back and physically, kind of have the tools to go win a really big game. That to me, I kind of knew that we could go through some adversity for sure.
Yeah. Is that the first time you've ever had somebody air vac off of your field?
Yeah. Yep.
Like I'd have been like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, it was crazy. He couldn't move his legs. It was pretty wild. But I mean,
really?
Yeah.
And he was playing up until that point? Like he was like running around, kicking the ball, doing all that?
Yeah, that was his first training back, and he went through maybe, I don't know, hour and a half of training. It was fine, and then it's like one little tap on the back.
Holy mackerel. Wow. Yeah. And he's okay now? I mean, is that...
Yeah, no, he's fine. He actually came back and played later in the year.
Wow,
Pretty
that's
crazy. It was
bizarre.
just like some uncontrolled bleeding, like internally, that
Mm-hmm.
was kind of around there, and it looked really weird because it was right next to the spine, but
Yeah.
yeah, and it was pretty benign. And once they got all that swelling down, and he ended up being just fine, thankfully. So, but yeah, that
Yeah,
was pretty
yeah.
crazy.
Holy mackerel! You don't. That's one of the things you don't mess with, right? Is the spine. But
Yeah, for
um,
sure. And those are the things that I think, like, I don't know, everybody loves talking soccer and like formations
yeah,
and all that and like the game,
yeah.
but
That's
you know, realistically at the college level, like player management and just like
yeah,
going
yeah,
through all of this stuff that you can't really foresee.
yeah.
It's something that you
I think
can't.
that's where you guys earn your keep. To be quite honest with you,
Yeah,
I think that's right. Like I think it's your, and not to dismiss sort of what you do on the field and all the coaching and the X's and the O's and all that, but I think where I don't think people realize where you earn your money is outside of that, and sort of how are your guys doing, and you're checking in on them, and oh, we have an academic issue, oh, we have a discipline issue, right? I think that's where you guys, in general, I think it's where you earn it, right?
for sure. Yeah, it's the majority of the job. I think it's player
Yeah,
management.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What was the sense going into the NCAA's? You got
Um,
to host, which was nice, right? Like,
yeah, yeah. Really, I mean, tough opening weekend for us.
yeah.
Um, Alfred State was very good this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they had belief, they had athleticism, they were very, I would just say, like combative, like not in a crazy way, but like they didn't come in there and look scared at all, which was pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to Gabe at Alfred State. I mean, he's done a great job. He's been there for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now. Um, but their progression has been good. So that was a tough first game for us. Harder than I think even our guys expected it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then Case on day two, I mean, they're a really, really good team.
Yeah,
And you kind of play them even. And our strengths are very different than their strengths, and
mm-hmm.
vice versa with the weaknesses. So it was kind of an interesting game to be a part of. And then it goes to penalties, and it goes your way, which penalties can go anybody's way.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
fortunate to get out of weekend one, I think.
mm-hmm.
And then weekend two, Robbie Emmett, he's the first assistant at Middlebury. He's an alum. I coached him in like my
Oh,
first year here in 2012. So that was pretty cool for us. He obviously came out on top of that one, and
yeah,
he just got the head coaching job at Norwich.
yeah. I
So
actually saw that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
huge shout out to him. Great for him.
Mm-hmm.
Really happy for his kind of path as a coach, and he's
Yeah,
he's killing it. He's doing great. But going into that game, like we felt like Middlebury was maybe one of the top
yeah,
2 or 3 teams in the country at that point that
yeah,
we had to face in the round of 16. So we knew it was going to be a
yeah,
gauntlet. I thought we did great in the first 20 minutes of the game. Like we're up 2-0 and
yeah,
things look good.
yeah.
We had a center back that kind of tore his knee.
Uh-huh.
We had to take out and put some replacements in, and game plan kind of went a little bit different than we thought it was going to, because right when we had to replace that center back, he tore his knee. I think they scored on that
On
subsequent
that
kind of free
play.
kick. Yeah,
Yeah,
that like 20 seconds later.
yeah.
Obviously, that chips into your belief a little bit, of
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing. And then the game leveled out a little bit, and then they scored again, like, I don't know, 20 seconds before halftime.
Yeah,
So to go into the half 2-2 after those two things, like, I think we just conceded at wrong times
yeah, yeah, yeah.
for morale
Psychologically.
and
Yeah,
belief.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. Half number two, I thought, we kind of came back and made it even again. We hit the crossbar when it was 2-2. Could have gone 3-2 us, and then next thing you know, they go down and they make it 3-2 them, and
Yeah.
it was kind of 3-2 for the remainder of the game, and we had just pulled the goalkeeper, pulled everything
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah. You guys, I
And
remember that one. That
yeah, it's one
you
of those.
basically were so stretched just trying to fight for the goal that at that point it was could drive a
Yeah,
truck through you guys to
yeah,
score.
and I'm like never gonna hold back and play conservative. It's just like not
Yeah,
my style. So I mean, what's the difference between 4-2 and 3-2, right? Like
yeah, yeah.
you
Oh,
might
I'm
as
the
well at
same way.
least
Same way.
throw everything at it that you can to try and go
Yeah,
3-3. So
yeah. Because if you get 3-3, oh my gosh, think of that, right? Like
yeah,
that's
then
I
then
always
you
say,
score at
like,
the right time. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I actually thought Middlebury, if I thought Middlebury was very, very good, they could catch you so quick on a counter.
Yeah.
Like it was, I mean, lightning,
Yep.
lightning. I thought they were so good at the counter. And I think they played it to the hilt. Like I remember watching, I think it was Tufts, and they sat back and just let Tufts do their thing. And then as soon as they won the ball, next thing you know, it's up by Tufts 18, right? Like it was that quick. I thought
Yep.
they were incredible at that.
And I think they were really good at set pieces.
Yeah, yeah,
They had a couple kids who were really dominant in the air. So
yeah, yeah,
they get you in transition, and then if you foul them in transition
yeah,
because your number's even or what have you, then
yeah.
you know
You're done. Yeah, yeah,
you're dealing with set pieces too.
yeah, yeah. All right, so I gotta ask, like, in your mind, because it's not the pinnacle, right? This is just another step. Like, what's next for you? What's next for the team? Obviously, going into the spring practices, sort of what are like if you're placing bets on where you're going to focus in on, where are those?
So we do have a lot of older guys coming back. Like this past year's junior group, it's like an amazing group. Not just soccer players, but people. Like the whole group of them is just this kind of like very type A, amazing people, make the most out of every moment type of kid. So that's been great. It's been great to work with them that now they have that kind of like freedom as there is no one else above them. Like they can kind of take the team how they want it. And they've done a great job so far. Some things we're focusing on this spring is that, we've been kind of echoing with our players that the best players have to be the hardest working every single day. Like you can't take a day off. And obviously we've got probably like 6 or 7 guys who think that they're the best guy. So that's great. Because it keeps that top,
Yeah, yeah,
also
honest.
working in some other ways.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got kind of a new little internal rule is we're limiting our social media use with our guys. And so they've got weekly check-ins just to get them off their phone and be a little bit more productive in the off season.
I could
there's a
use
like,
that rule.
they get 15 minutes a day.
Wow, I could
Yeah,
use that rule. Can you implement
we
that,
all could,
coach?
right? Like that's why we're doing it. So. But yeah, that's kind of like a new thing for us this spring. Is just I don't know, with all the like mental health stuff that people are throwing
Yeah,
around nowadays, right? And like you see just
yeah,
screen time use is going up and up and up, and like
yeah,
there's no end in sight. We felt like as a staff, like why is no one doing anything about it? And
yeah,
let's
yeah,
let's be at kind of the vanguard of that.
yeah.
And so it's not a perfect science. Obviously, some of our guys are a little bit distressed about that, but it's been good. I mean, literally like 2 days after, one of the guys stopped in the office and he was like, "Yeah, he's like, I was just so bored yesterday. I like cleaned my room and organized my room." I was like, "Good, that's yeah." That's
Yeah,
what we're doing here.
seriously.
So,
Like what
but
I
I think
always
that's been
say,
good
make your bed. You know what I mean? Like
for
that
sure,
is, you want to do something, make your bed. That's more productive than anything else you could do.
for sure.
So
So we're hammering some of that type of stuff in the off season, which has been pretty neat. Just to kind of like we talk about, we've lost in the Sweet 16 a lot, and so you
you
usually
have,
lose to a certain type of school, right?
yeah,
Like, and not that every kid is the same on all of those programs, right? But like for the most part, they've got habits that are, productive. They're very driven. They're self
yeah,
motivated, right? Like, I mean, you could probably create a
yeah,
list of
yeah,
like what that
yeah,
typical player looks like. And so for us, we've just been saying like, well, we need to out habit those
yeah,
players, right? Like,
yeah,
you're obviously not at those schools,
yeah,
but that doesn't mean our habits can't match.
yeah.
We've been talking a lot about habits, year-round habits, daily habits, and then we finally get to kick off. We start up after spring break, so it'll be good to
Yeah.
finally get on the field in a couple weeks now.
Yeah. Uh, that's interesting you say that because I always think about this too. Is just you know, what makes some of these schools so consistently good, and I always want to go back to there is something about if you go to a private school like that they're looking for a particular kid and that kid's got to have all of these innate talents and some of it is drive and discipline and
Yep.
right, and that translates, whether you realize it or not, onto how they approach their soccer. And I think that is true. I think you capture that, or capture it / make it Cortland, right? Or make it the way it's appropriate for Cortland. And I think you're able to get that parity with those schools that have this innate advantage, I think, to others,
sure.
right?
And I think that's like one of the things that we're really proud about here is just like putting ourselves on those lists with those schools.
Yeah.
While not being those schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plain and simple. Like,
yeah.
If you can end up on the rankings with all of the schools that, you need 300 points higher on an SAT to get into, like, good on us. It means we're maximizing the players and the people that we get here.
That I agree with.
That's kind of coaching, is like,
how
do you just maximize the kids that you can get?
Yeah.
And again, like, we do have some really bright kids that could go other places and don't.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? This is definitely not a place just full of kids that, Cortland doesn't necessarily need to be everybody's fourth choice, right? Like, and
Correct.
we have a lot of kids where it's not fourth choice.
Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, there's an academic standard, there's probably a habit standard, there's a drive, and then take all of that on the academic side, and you're a good enough soccer player to go play at Tufts, right? or like some of these really high academic schools, like you're a really driven kid, like
And it translates, like I said, that sort of thing just translates. Hey, I want you to go. I mean, it's as simple as we're expecting you to go to the gym 3 times a week and tracking all this stuff, and they take it like, okay, and whereas other kids, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, right? Like I think kids who don't go necessarily to that school, okay, I'll go twice. They sort of come up with I don't want to look bad or say something that's not appropriate. But
we're on the right track with all that, I think. There's a realism to that. Aside from hurting anyone's feelings. But I mean, I think one of our biggest jobs here, and one of the things that we do extremely well at, is telling kids and like showing our players that like you might not have had the first 18 years, but that doesn't mean you can't have the next 40 and compete with everybody else in the world, right? Like, because it really is just daily habits, it's like motivations and habits and disciplines and, all of those small decisions make who you are. And it's easy to like, I use one of the examples of there's that saying, like the early bird gets the worm, right? So like with our guys, I'm like, but there's also the reality that like if you're a bird with a longer beak and you were born with a longer beak, you wake up whatever the hell you want, right? Like you're getting wormed no matter what. But I think you have to understand yourself. Like, are you a short beak or a long beak? It doesn't mean you're not eating. That just means you might have to live your life a little bit different if you want those same things. And so our guys buy into that approach, and I think they like being the underdogs a little bit. I like being the underdog. I was a state school kid, so I like playing that role.
I just judge you guys based on what you put on the field, and you're as good as anybody. Like I mean that. I mean that. Like you're. Again, I think just like any school, to get to the top of the top, things have to fall your way, and you got to be lucky sometimes, and right. And like I think that is very true. But I think from a soccer perspective, I think you guys are as good as it gets, like
Thanks.
Without a doubt. And I'm not. All that other stuff is secondary, right? Like no, whatever you're doing right. So, I got to ask you, and I probably asked you this before, again, just because you're so culture driven at Cortland. Yeah. What's your gauntlet like for taking kids in? Like how, I don't want to say judgmental, but how much do you do pre-recruiting somebody to make sure that this is a kid that's going to come in and isn't going to be that problem, isn't going to be the one who sort of destroys it all?
Half and half. Because I do have a firm belief that we can change kids for the better when they get here. It's kind of like that. If we have 30 kids that are all doing the right thing, one kid that we take a chance on, and we tell them that up front, we say like you're going to need to fall in line and you're going to have to adopt our value set. And if you're okay with that, we're okay with bringing you in. So I do think it's half and half. I mean, all things equal, we would obviously default towards the kid that we think has a much better chance of fitting in here. And like right now up on our recruiting class for this fall is done. And I would say 75% of them are kids that we know firmly are going to keep that culture going. 3 years time, they're going to be at the forefront of that and they're going to be leading the charge. And we've probably got another 25% that we're taking a chance on, but we're very clear with our expectations of them and just say, you're the player that's going to fit in great here, but we also, are a college soccer team and not a professional soccer team. And like, you have to be the person and the student that's also going to be successful here. So, I mean, we're honest and upfront in the process with the kids about where we see them fitting in and where we see them falling short. I'd say it's half and half. I mean, I don't think we could go the other way and say we're taking a chance on 75% of the kids.
Yeah, no.
There's got to be a majority balance there that's going to keep that going. But again, we're not Clemson, like you can't just go pick the 10 kids that you want per year. And maybe that's oversimplifying Clemson's process, but I mean, we have to take the soccer players that are going to help us be successful as a soccer team. But we also have to let them know that there's expectations beyond that. We're not just a soccer team. There's a lot of other qualifying metrics that are going to keep you here or, make us have to part ways. So,
and I bet you probably find most kids are receptive to it, right? Like they're not like I always say, especially now just walking, I think kids are starving for discipline, belonging, all of those things, right? Where they're not, and I think going into a program, I bet you find most kids are like, yeah, okay, whatever, I'll do whatever I need to do and sort of buy in right off the bat.
Yeah, they're definitely starving for structure and discipline, 100%. I think the world right now for young kids does a great job at moving the goalposts of expectations on them. Oh, your homework's a little bit late, no problem, right?
Yeah.
We'll let it slide, right? Like, and then the next time it's, nope, that was the deadline. And they're like, well, which one is it, right? I think kids do, and adults too. I think everybody does best when there's like clear and definitive, this is reality.
Yeah.
Right? And you meet it or you don't. And if you don't, this is what happens next. I think the wiggle room, that gray area that we all want to live in just to make everybody feel better, actually makes people feel worse. You have no idea what the expectations are. You don't know what the future looks like for you. It's hard to plan, which causes anxiety in kids. Like, I heard a great quote the other day. It was like, unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments. Right, which is like,
I got to get that tattoo. I'm telling
great,
you.
Man. It's
oh
a
my gosh, I'm like,
oh
yeah, I could totally understand that.
And you're like, you don't want to, put out these black and white rules, but then when they don't meet those expectations that you just keep in your head, now you resent them for it, and you're like, of course everybody's in a little bit of turmoil. So I think being really explicit and clear about what those expectations are coming in. With the parents as well, because parents are playing a big role. And just say, this is how we're going to treat your kid, and this is what it looks like. And if at any point that doesn't fit with you or your son or how you want to go about your life,
that's fine. But
no problem.
Yeah,
right? Like,
I totally get it.
But we're certainly not going to change our expectations for others, right? Like this is just, it is what it is.
Yeah. All right, 2 more questions, then I'll let you go. First, most important question, because I missed the flight. How was Italy?
Well, we've gone twice now. Our team went last year. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so our team went, and it was unbelievable. It was amazing.
Yeah.
We actually went with our women's team, which worked out to be really, really great. I think it brought the two teams really close.
Yeah.
So like their relationships here on campus have just been, they're much more supportive of each other. They're at everybody's, each other's games. So that's been great. We had an unbelievable itinerary. Actually, Kyle at Tufts is doing the same exact trip. We got back and he and I were talking about it a ton. And I think he was like, yeah, just send us on whatever Cortland did because it looked amazing. But it was great. I mean, we did homemade pasta making courses. We did
Oh my gosh.
a bike tour through Lucca.
Oh my gosh.
We went to Cinque Terre, and kind of like on the cliffs there. And it was cool. It was really cool. We did Florence, Milan. We saw an AC Milan game. And we get to play 2 games. We actually played really, really well over there. So that was kind of fun. We got to, play all of the guys. We had like a little bit of an easier first game, and we had a hard second game. I think the second game was still like in the top 10 experiences of our guys' lives, I think.
Really?
So we played this, it was kind of like a feeder team for Empoli. So there's a lot of guys, like either older guys that were very good or some young kids like trying to really make it. And we went down 2-0. But we kind of battled back, went 2-2, and then like in the second half it went 3-2, and like we were just flying, like we were playing great. And then after the game, they had like a restaurant right in their clubhouse, and so all the guys got changed, went to the restaurant. They like unbelievable like food, just these like spreads of food, and they had wine going for the players. Like it was cool. It was a cool experience though. The whole trip.
Love it.
I mean, there was no negatives to the trip.
Yeah. Well, now that
my wife and I over this past December, so we went.
Oh, that might have been the pictures that I saw. Then. Yeah. So jealous.
Which is a little bit. There's some pros and cons to that because now my wife wants to move there. So.
Yeah. See if you can't get a coaching gig over there.
Yeah, that's right.
Now that I know Tufts is like, I might have to call him up.
Yeah.
Coach Desatel. Yeah. I will carry luggage or I will be in luggage. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Hey, man, I would wear light blue for a week.
Oh, that's great. All right. Last question for you. Just looking out to 2024. I know it's early, but what are you thinking of 2024? What are you looking forward to? What do you think some of the challenges might be?
Got a good group of returners, so there's a solid base coming back. Our recruiting class this year, we went much more heavy on true freshmen rather than transfers.
Oh, wow. Okay. By design?
By design. Yeah, by design. Not that anything has gone wrong. It was just we think we were at a point where because of the last 3 years' consistent success, we were starting to get some of those players that maybe would have gone the Division I route or would have gone elsewhere first. So we actually got a lot of those freshmen that we went out after the first time around. Credit to our assistant Colby, like he's just a phenomenal recruiter. So we've kind of handed much of the reins of recruiting over to him, and he's nailed it, like absolutely nailed it with a really great class. So I'm excited for them, excited for that group of new kids that are going to be coming in. I think there's quite a few of them that are going to be pushing current starters for some time. There's a couple big time kids in the class for sure. So that'll be interesting. It's a good problem to have, but it also, poses some problems from just a player management standpoint. If you get an 18-year-old that's better than your, veteran kid that's coming back. Yeah. So we're going to be, I don't want to say dealing with that, but that's going to be something that's on the forefront of us in terms of just managing players and expectations going in. Trying to get those kids that deserve some minutes as young players, get them their time as a young player. In terms of wins and losses, who knows?
Yeah.
The game's
that's
crazy.
absolutely.
It's too early to tell.
Yeah.
You get injuries and who knows, right?
That just goes back to what we said earlier. You just sort of need things to fall just right for you along the path, right? And And I'm not worried about the wins and losses anyway.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully we have similar success. Obviously it'd be nice. But I think we have the players to do it. We've got young kids that I think are going to keep us going for the next 4 years, definitely. We've got a good group coming back, like I said, but we've also got, our goalkeeper has got 3 more years left. He was the starter this past year.
He was good. I like that kid.
Yeah, very good.
I like that kid.
So, I mean, we've got some good pieces in the right places. And, I mean, even beyond our current goalkeeper that's starting, I mean, the next 2 guys behind him may not be our number 1, but I'm confident in them if they had to be our number 1.
Yeah.
To kind of keep us going.
Yeah.
So,
good place to be.
Yeah, we've got depth.
Yeah.
And right now we have really good leadership. Obviously, it's like weeding a garden. You got to keep it going. But we've got the right foundation for everything. So we'll see. Hopefully we can have some similar levels of success.
Well, I'll be watching.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, really, really appreciative of your time today. This is great. Like I said, always love catching up. Always love talking Cortland soccer. And wish you well in the spring season. Hopefully we can catch up one of these times if you're on the recruiting trail somewhere.
Of course. Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right, Coach.
All right, take care.